Greetings everyone, this is the Great Rig here, and I am back, baby! It's been almost 3 years since I last made a video, but I figured I would come back with a rather fun challenge idea. So if you know me, you have a 95% chance that you know my friend Steven, or as you know him, FEMS Paint. You also probably know that he does a series of Fire Emblem rosters according to Google. So in turn, I decided to see how easy the games would be using the units Google leaves unchanged. So I'll be going through every game that he has covered and using those results as a guideline of who to use. Some ground rules though before we begin. 1. The Lord character or avatar character will be used in spite of Google search results. This is because if I don't do this, I could never beat a prologue of any game. 2. I can use thieves or other units that will help me recruit other units I can use. 3. I will reset for units that I can use that end up dying. Everyone else? Well, thank you for taking a hit for the other units that I can use. 4. I will be able to use save states if I feel like the situation requires it, especially in games like Fire Emblem 1 and Gaiden. 5. I will be going chapter to chapter to report on, at least for this video and most Fire Emblem games. There may be exceptions in other games. Lastly, I will only be doing games FEMS Paint has covered the roster of. I'm not going to research this myself, that's too much fucking effort on my part. With that out of the way, let's begin with Fire Emblem Dark Dragon, the Blade of Light. Now, we start with Chapter 1 in the simple pirate invasion where Marth and his Altian Knights come to deal with the pirates invading the land they have made home the last 2 years. However, our army is of course smaller than normal. We first have Marth, who actually was unchanged in the Google image search, but even if he had been changed, he is still the Lord, so the rules don't apply to him. With him, thankfully, are his future wife Sheeta, his old man Jagan, and the 5-point most archer out there, Gordon, who only makes it because of his spelling. Unfortunately for Kane, he's too busy killing Abel, and Abel is too busy being murdered. Drog himself is too busy being some creature from the Witcher series, which I admit I know nothing about. But so far we have at least a solid squad of 4 units we can use pretty easily. So of course I start this how I start every run of a non-DS Arcanea game, by having Jagan give his Silver Lance to Sheeta so she can actually have an attack stat in this game because the default Pegasus Knight weapon level is 7. Hello, Silver Lance and Silver Sword. All the while Marth goes to collect the protection fee from the villagers of a whopping 10,000 gold, which right now, that's a good amount of money to use. Then I start to send everyone who can't fight away to stay back and let the heroes of this run take over. So far for Chapter 1, things go pretty smoothly since you already have some good units to work with from the start, though slightly slower too since I have less units than the speedy-ass thief. Yet I quickly managed to make my way to one of the more helpful units in this run, Reese. While he does not gain XP from healing because FE1 was made on cocaine and MacGyvering of random data bullshit, he already has a base that can use Men's Staff, which will be a goddamn lifesaver here. But yeah, Chapter 1, pretty quick and pretty simple, all things considered. Now, on to Chapter 2, where we have a few new units joining us. Unfortunately for Agama, he has stopped trying to hide the fact that he's a god, while Board and Cord are too busy being a board and an electrical cord. However, we do get one new unit out of this, Barst, who because he's an early FE-Axe unit, cannot promote and kinda gets the short end of the stick with the least accurate weapon type, but we gotta work with it. Though not too far from the group, we also get another new unit in Daros. While Barst just has a bad weapon type, Daros has such a terrible skill stat that it makes a blind paraplegic look like a master at knife throwing. But either way, this map goes about as normal for me. A lot of turtling while I funnel out the enemies and then meet with Castor. Unfortunately, he has decided to become a beaver, so I decided that instead of becoming a member of my bench, he would become much more valuable EXP to Sheeta, who needed a good 4-stat level up. Now, I also spend a lot of this chapter power leveling Reese to level 10 or so, actually level 13. As I said, healing doesn't give EXP in this game, so how do healers level up? Well, that's simple, my friend. Just use that Matrix dodge, Neo. So after Reese was done power leveling off of the boss and their shaky axe hit rates, we now have 2 chapters of the game done. So far, so good. Now we move on to Chapter 3. There are no new units in this map we can use long term, however we want to keep the thief Julian, despite him being replaced by a random guy named Julian, and Lena became a German singer. Thief utility is allowed when needed, and Lena, well, she has a warp staff that, despite me learning that Reese can't properly use it due to his shit weapon level, will still be very helpful in the time to come. But for now, we need to rescue the two of them. So I send Jagan and Gordon their way while Marth, Barst, Sheeta, Daros, and Reese go to the lower path. I mean, Jagan totally has this, right? It's not like... Oh. Never mind that. So I come back another day and attempt this once again. This time I send everyone but Marth full speed ahead towards the mountains while Marth goes to get something important. A weapon called the Devil Axe. Now you may be wondering if I will recruit Navarre. Unfortunately, no. Navarre is too busy being a nation that's 200 years dead, so we will convert him into much more valuable EXP. After we deal with the bandits over with Navarre, it becomes smooth sailing. We get the Devil Axe, which I rightfully put on my lowest luck guy, Pro ZD, and honestly, we move on to Chapter 4. In Chapter 4, we get 2 new units. Fun fact, look up either Mathis or Merrick, and you get both of their Fire Emblem appearances as the first result, and sadly for Mathis, not the much better Jude Mathis from Tales of Xillia. I was disappointed too, Steven. But either way, we have 2 more units to our now 9 usable units. Decent sized army there. Now, as I stated, I do allow myself to use a unit if they are required for another unit I can use. In this case, I had to bring in Lena for Mathis. So we lure Mathis in as we go in, and things are going well until we get to recruiting Mathis. This is because I forget to heal Gordon and he gets massacred. Well, on to attempt number 2. Things go much smoother here, though with a bit of worry as Marth seems to be killing things a bit too easily with his steel sword, such as the Cavaliers. Something that Mathis is. I also lose the first village near us, which if you are a Shadow Dragon fan, you would know that is terrifying, because that is where Merrick should be, right? Well, surprise, surprise. In FE1 he is at the village closer to the boss. So yeah, I lose money, but hey, fuck it. Another thing is I also forget that I can use Barst, and left him with the bench squad I am forced to deploy, due to the fact that you can't under-deploy in FE1. So he was left in the back until an archer came in. Just a funny little thing I felt like including. Now I will admit I did cheat a little here since I panicked and saw the village that actually did have Merrick was about to get destroyed too, and since Reese has a worse weapon level growth in ranks than Marth, he could not use the warp staff. So Lena got to keep it on as I used my first use of it to take him to the village and get Merrick. The best unit in this run, since he is my only mage in a game where res literally doesn't exist, so he deals 6 damage a hit by default and doubles nearly everything. So yeah, good addition to help kill the boss too. On to Chapter 5 though, we get a fair bit of an addition to our roster. You see, in this chapter we get a group called the Wolf Guard, which consists of Hardin, Wolf, Sedgar, Roshea, and Violent. Unfortunately, Hardin is too busy being a young adult movie lead character, and Wolf is too busy being a literal wolf to be used. However, the others, all are themselves surprisingly, so they can be used. So that's about 3 or more horse units I can use. Now what about our other unit we can get, Wendell? Well, unfortunately, he's too busy being a professional soccer player. Hey, never told to be playing a good sport, I say. However, he is not being converted to valuable EXP, and why not, you may ask? Mans is the best unit in the game with a good speed and skill stat and can double everything. You go against him, you are going to die. There is no saying you will post the fight later on Twitter because you're never going to fight this man. So I do the reasonable thing and let him come to me. Then I basically get the village and fight my way to the throne. Boring, I know, but sometimes a little downtime is nice. On to Chapter 6 now. Chapter 6 starts off rather well since we got a good squad to use now, though I have to bring Julian for the chests and to ironically recruit our other thief Rickard. Why not turn him into much more valuable EXP like I normally would in an Iron Man run? Well, he's a thief. If Julian dies when I need a thief for a door, I'll need to have someone for that. Now, on to, ironically, other issues I discovered on this map, the thieves. So unlike FE3 or even the DS games, when a thief opens a chest, they just open it and the item is gone forever. As such, I lost a fair few stat boosters in this map that would have actually helped this map. However, for the most part it went pretty chill, especially since I had taken it slow. Another blank map that has nothing to really add any commentary to, so on to Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is where I really felt like I was going to need to be careful. The reason? Most of my group is cavalry, like any typical FE player, and I forget which motherfucker has it, but one of these enemies has a deadly weapon that scares all lazy players, a horse slayer. But another issue. A ton of flyers I'll need to deal with as they're all making a line straight to fucking you up. One of this group is the goddess Minerva, a piece of clothing, and Eastern Standard Time. However, one that was not changed is Katria. Though you cannot recruit them at this time, and the 4 of them all disappear right after 2 turns. So not the biggest deal, with the rest able to be shot to death by Gordon and Sedgar. I go and visit the village with Marth and get Bantu, who I sadly won't be using despite being good in this game, since he, like many others, are too busy not being themselves. Though, fun note, because Paula appears in FEMS Paint's videos with both Arcanea and Valencia, and she is unchanged Arcanea but not Valencia, for the sake of consistency, I stuck with the Valencian results. Again, not relevant, but a fun fact. Either way, we take our time and carefully block all spawn points and clear things with ease. Chapter 8 is where we gotta be a bit more careful too, since everything is gonna come at us from the north of the map, while we start at the bottom of the map. This map comes with 3 new units, but there is one problem. We can't use any of them. First, we got 2 new mercs in Caesar and Rad, one of whom is too busy getting stabbed to death, and the other has become a VTuber of some kind, I think? Either way, we can't use them. Then there's also Roger, who, let's be fair, that's a common-ass name, so of course he wasn't usable. But for some reason I don't make him into EXP, and decide to go for the funny combo he has. Though I have to restart a few times, since Sedgar dies a couple of times, and as I said, this isn't a real Iron Man run. But we make it through mostly fine, since I once again take my time and am rather careful. Chapter 9 is a rather boring map, since the map here is one of the most forgettable maps in the series, which is a shock when you fight a motherfucking dragon on this map, but still somehow boring nonetheless. I attempt to get George, not because I'm going to use him, but for his silver bow, but that fails. I also get the goddess icon, which I give to Jagan, since I have to use him, he may as well make himself a real powerhouse, and 15,000 gold. Yeah, nothing of note here really, since I lost nobody and just gained 3 things. Just as much of a footnote here as it is in Arcanea in general. Now, Chapter 10 is where things really start to get interesting. You see, Chapter 10 has that lovely goddess Minerva reappear, mostly because you also have to save her sister Maria too. Sadly, neither can be used for this run, so I go and kill Minerva, then leave Maria to her fate of starving in the dungeons. This is all fine and won't affect anything down the road, trust me. Yet I also assure you, viewer, that I am not completely heartless, since despite leaving Maria to starve, I do liberate the physics staff. I could have also gotten the hero crest, but honestly, I have no heroes to promote into this run, so that is a skip, as sad as it makes me. But aside from this, nothing of real note to tell, especially since nobody died or really got close to it. Rather, instead we managed to kill 2 of the royal Macedonian family, which I feel accomplished for doing. Chapter 11 presents us with a presence that normally would terrify the hell out of any Fire Emblem player. A whole field full of ballistae. However, in this game there are only 2 range, basically being armored archers, so they aren't that scary, and instead we make our way through and around, dealing with mercs that are around the town at the bottom, and visit the village to get Linde. Normally I would welcome another mage, but Linde is too busy being some sort of German company. We can also get Jake on this map, but he's too busy being the best dog from Adventure Time. Neither of which are usable to me. So Jake becomes a good level up for Merrick, and Linde becomes the bench since you can't directly kill her. Now, Chapter 12 is quite the interesting one, I will say. This map has quite a few things you can grab in it, such as a Knight's Crest from the Paladin boss at the bottom of the map, locked in a room, to the Orion's Bolt, some gold, a silver sword, a dragon pike, and even some boots. Now, one thing I will say is, I forgot to get door keys and or bring a thief, so I will not be getting any of that there. this is what will be a surprise tool that will fuck us later. Oh, and we also have Thomas the Tank Engine, a research company, a giant-ass snake, and 2 living testicles. I do my best to keep Medea alive since I need her for recruitment of a unit I can use, but sadly I lose one of the testicles and Thomas the Tank Engine. Chapter 13 is one of the few maps I actually had to restart quite a few times. First was because I forgot to put Medea in the party. Second was because units I was able to use kept dying. When it wasn't that, there was one other problem. Ballistas themselves. In this game they are locked to 2 range, yet with that they are basically armor knights with 15 defense. So, just use an armor slayer, right? Well, about that, I say basically armor knights, but imagine them without being affected by a rapier / armor slayer. But this map is rather easy outside of that, as I get Astrum with Medea's help and keep going on to chapter 14. Sorry there ain't too much detail yet, but that's gonna change since we are well past the halfway point in game, especially as we get to chapter 14. Alright, so let's discuss chapter 14, which is a pretty fun chapter as my team is developing rather nicely, especially Barst, who despite having no promotion himself is turning out rather well. The rest of the team themselves are turning out rather well too, since I've been using most of these guys for almost 10 chapters, though my Cavaliers don't know what the fuck a strength stat is without me feeding a stat booster to say Mathis, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get back on point. So while the enemies are rather easy, I'm looking forward to my next unit, Catria. So I get excited when I see the Pegasus Knights spawn, thinking that they are Pala and Catria, and as such I can get them. Though this first wave is not, so I just kill them and wait for the next wave. Oh, it's still not them. Well, maybe the next wave. Nope. Alright, turn 50? Wait. Wait. Where the fuck are they? Alright. I know this is not gonna help, but maybe we could find some shit on Google. Oh, fuck me. Oh, so remember how I said that with chapter 10 that Minerva dying was fine? Well, what I meant to say was that killing Minerva was a surprise tool that will fuck us later. So we don't get another Pegasus Knight in this run, which just means the one Dragon Whip we will get will go to Sheeta, so I don't need to worry about that. But other than that, we can now go to chapter 15, which is the desert map. Okay, I won't lie, this one wasn't all that bad, all things considered. So, I was afraid of this map because of Garneth. You see, you can't defeat Garneth since his tome in Hulu makes him invincible for now, and he begins to come at you. However, he is not too much of a threat, as after a while, he teleports off the map. This also helps me cull my extra units, since unfortunately, as I stated before, FE1 forces you to do full deployment. Either way, this one was a rather quick map, especially as I can put it into just one paragraph like I have it on the script. Now, chapter 16 is where I get my second to last unit in the game, Zane. Thanks to that X there, he has become the first Google result for his name. Meanwhile, you also have the 2 villages that carry Samson or Aaron, depending on who you want. However, for this run, Samson has become a biblical figure, and Aaron has become some area in Scotland. No idea, I stopped being good at geography in high school. So I decided to ignore the entire 2 villages since I didn't need the silver weapons, side note I am a genius, and just decided to go south to get Zane, and thankfully not much goes wrong. Now, on to chapter 17. Okay, now chapter 17. 17 is what I call an absolute hellscape of a map, mainly with how my not so particularly strong or speedy group of units I had was dealing with a pretty fucking accurate group of enemies that could take my ass out with ease as I go to grab the treasure. Speaking of, funny thing about the race to the treasure, this is the one time I actually had to do this in my run. No idea if my ROM, I mean my legal copy of the game, was just bugged or not, but most of the time, unless you were going to destroy a house in chapter 19, thieves did not move. Here, however, These motherfuckers are booking into the treasure like the whitest bitch you know going after some nose candy. But after a few resets and RNG rigging, I get the treasure there, which includes a good old Knight's Crest to use on one of my mini calves I got. But now, on to the biggest issue. Fucking mage dragons. So, allow me to explain these complete fuckheads to you. Name sounds pretty simple, right? Mage who's a dragon and all that, right? Well, they are more or less just have something called the Mage Stone, which just bumps up their defense to high fucking heaven alongside other shit. Now here's another thing. Every enemy in this game has 0 resistance, meaning they take full damage from magic. So like a smart person, you think, oh, I can use Merrick to kick its ass, right? Congrats. You have basic thought processing given what the game has shown so fucking far. How the ever-loving cock fucking ever, that is not the case, because guess motherfucking what? Mage dragons negate magic! Same with demon dragons. Now, some of you may be such a devil's advocate, you know, the taste of his asshole, and are saying, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? Well, it would if mages themselves could negate other magic used on them, or if the game fucking told you. No, instead you have to have someone with good ass strength and a Worm Slayer deal with Morzus, but guess motherfucking what? I will admit this is my fault, but I was running low on Astrum's Worm Slayer uses, and here's another thing. You need at least 9 strength with the Worm Slayer to deal actual damage. This would not be a problem if I could use my boy Mathis with his 14 strength to do it. However, this is the big issue. You need 9 weapon level to use it, and Mathis and the rest of my party have no fucking idea what that stat is. So I gave up for a bit, feeling defeated. Was I soft blocked? Was this the end? Well, needless to say, no. You see, after spending a week away from the game, I came back and, well, I made sure that this time the Worm Slayer had more uses, and Sheeta used it to kill Morzus, and I can say fuck this map after spending a few more turns getting the member card. Now, finally, on to Chapter 18. Alright, so Chapter 18, this one isn't too bad since it's just a big bridge and no bullshit mage dragons to mess with. Just simple paladins on the way to a temple. Now, I could have recruited Est and gotten the Mercurius, but as we stated before, none of the White Wings reappear if you let Minerva die or don't recruit her. But it isn't a huge loss, since we can no longer use Est, since she has become a time zone instead of a Pegasus Knight. And Chapter 19 is actually pretty interesting. So we know how in Fire Emblem 3 and Shadow Dragon, the rooms with the treasure and the rooms with the snipers on this map are hidden and you have to guess which is which, right? Not here. We know which rooms have which, but we have to kill the snipers to access the treasures so that we don't, like, get hit by them as we go to get them. Thieves go back to being idiot AI, so for me I don't have to worry about having treasure stolen for my, like, Chapter 17. And as for the boss, well, I could recruit the adorable Tiki Torch, but I need less of a roster and more EXP, so Merrick, who gets freshly promoted this chapter, takes her out. Chapter 20. Okay, this one is quite a hard one. The challenge here is the reinforcements from all sides you have to really watch out for. Normally, if this was a non-challenge playthrough, this would be where Tiki would level grind. However, since Tiki had to die for EXP, I had to just park some of my horse boys in a few forts to take care of the reinforcements there. Next was Lorenz and Camus, the former of who recruited himself. Unfortunately, since Lorenz is no longer the bearded badass and instead the kid with the goofiest hair to ever grace the series, I cannot use him in this game. Now for Camus. Camus' gonna stay on his seize point with his good as hell Void and the powerful Gradivu. So, I did the only thing that was reasonable. Have Marth with his 2 rapiers go at him until I got the results I wanted. Took a fair bit of time and patience, but hey, I got what I wanted. Though I do nearly die to Ballista right after the fight, but that's not important. Chapter 21 itself is a bit of a weird case because it's such a forgettable map to me. Just a huge open field, which is not bad on its own, it just leaves you with such little wiggle room to do shit. So I do what I always do. Make these motherfuckers come to me and pray to whatever entity that is listening that shit will go well. Once again, thank you, Satan. You're a real one. Now, Chapter 22 is where the inventory system becomes complete bullshit. So if you have played Mystery of the Emblem or Shadow Dragon, you know you need both the Light Sphere and the Star Sphere to make the Tome Starlight in order to kill Garneth, right? Well, in those games, you just need to have gotten those items and visit the village and you would be fine. Not in this game. No, in this game, you need to have them both in Marth's fucking inventory. So if Marth doesn't have them, too bad, so sad. Another thing is you cannot even manage your items like in the SNES era. God, FE1 is certainly a game. Let me fucking tell you that. So I discovered this, I had to restart, find who the fuck had the star and light spheres, and then put them on Marth. Problem solved there. Then I went and just simply kicked Michaelis' ass, since I'm just built different. Nothing else sadly to note with this map, despite my love of Michaelis. Now, on to Chapter 23. This is another map where there's not really much of a challenge. Just gotta be aware that the enemies are all mages, and because this is FE1, the res stat doesn't exist. The thieves aren't much of a threat, and Garneth, well, there are like a few of him. However, the game makes it easy in every version to tell which Garneth is the real one, so no need to play a guessing game with him. Though I still kill every clone of him on the map anyway for EXP. Especially because at this point I couldn't give less of a fuck as I get Falchion for Marth and a guiding ring to promote Reese with. Not that it matters this late into the game. Chapter 24 of FE1 is a usually pretty hellish map. For a big reason. Non-stop reinforcements and the annoying ass demon dragons. However, for the boss I had an idea. Warp Marth over with the Falchion and attack. One big problem with that, though. My Marth has no strength to speak of. You see, my Marth has gotten what you might say, completely stat fucked. Now, I could easily correct this with stat boosters in the secret shop and stuff, right? Yeah, about that. I have kind of forgotten to go to nearly any of the secret shops in this game outside of the very first one. But I have a solution, and her name is Sheeta with my 3 remaining uses of Gradivis. You see, instead of actually giving a damn about this map, why not just send Sheeta to kill the boss and then warp Marth in? It's like I'm playing a Thracian map! So once I set that up, fuck this map, I'm out of here. On to Endgame. Oh, and Elise is not changed. Forgot to mention that, so we can use her. Now, Endgame, I make a mistake. You see, I forgot that Goto, instead of being an awesome sage, is now a type of lock. However, I in turn used him for that valuable Fortify staff. But other than that, I go on to this map with one big issue. How do I go about dealing with Medius and the Demon Dragon in front of him? See, I no longer have the Gradivis since I broke it on the Chapter 24 boss. And once again, Martha's too fucking weak to deal damage with the fucking Falchion. Damn, I thought I was playing FE1, not Shadow Dragon Hard 5. But what do I do if I cannot weaken the dragons? Well, there is one unit and one weapon I forgot this entire run. Gordon coming in clutch with the Parthia. You see, Gordon with the Parthia and his awesome power, we can take care of the Demon Dragon in front of Medius. So we are ending this like how I'd like to pretend this began. One Marth and his trusted archer, kicking ass and taking names. However, there comes another problem with that. Gordon's attacks are sealed against Medius, so if I can't damage Medius with Gordon, how can I damage him? Well, there's a funny thing about that. Marth can still damage him for 7 damage a pop, since apparently it's coded in for Marth to be able to do that, I guess? So now it's time for Marth to struggle it out with Medius, while one by one I have the entire rest of my army, sans Reese, Goto, Sheeta, and Gordon, die at the hands of the enemy. You may have died for no reason, but that was a sacrifice I was willing to make. So, now with a long fight and many deaths later, we have slain Medius, and as such completed FE1. Was it possible? Yes. Though admittedly I used a fuck ton of RNG manipulation and save states, which I stated were not against the rules, but I would have preferred to do this without the need for all of that as much as I used them. But I will say it was an interesting experience to go back to this game to do a challenge run. Something outside of an Iron Man I really doubt anyone has done with this game, because most people don't really go back and even play this game. And honestly, I was just glad to play it. And now for closing thoughts, or closing statements rather, I'd like to thank Steven from FEMS Paint for the idea, people like Argo Sleuth for supporting me on streams and stuff, and lastly, anyone that checks out this video. Thank you all, and I will see you next time for Fire Emblem Gaiden Google Edition. Thank you, and have a good night.